Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Dead Men Tell No Tales. This is a 2 to 5 player action point allowance cooperative exploration game where you take the role of a crew of pirates who have just taken down the most feared enemy ship in the sea. You are now going to loot all of the treasure on this ship and try to make it back to your ship. You will be battling crew and guards, fighting fires, all while avoiding fatigue, trying to loot all of these treasures and make it back to your ship. If you're able to loot all the treasure and make it back to your ship, then you are the most successful crew of pirates and win the game. Now that we know what the winning condition is, let's take a look at the components, setup, and how gameplay works in Dead Men Tell No Tales. Now let's take a look at the components. You have a cloth bag to hold your tokens, explosion tracker, explosion marker, starting room tiles. These are the tiles that have a question mark on the dice in the center of the tile. Regular room tiles, fire dice in yellow and red, deckhands, which are your wooden skulls, the battle die, double-sided tokens, which are treasure and guard, grog and skeleton crew, cutlass and skeleton crew, trap door, and then the captain token for advanced play. Your player boards, your pirate figures, battle tokens in each of the pirate colors, action tokens, character cards, item cards, dinghy card, revenge cards, player aids, and finally, your rulebook. Now let's take a look at the setup. We're going to be setting this up for a 3-player game, which takes 10 steps. Step 1, place the starting tiles, explosion track, and the explosion marker in the play area. You'll place them to the side instead of in the middle because room tiles will be added to this area. Then place the explosion marker near the left side of the explosion track. The starting tiles are the tiles that have the question marks in the center of the tile. When placing these starting tiles, you'll notice there are sections for the regular room tiles to be placed around these tiles. Step 2, roll the starting fire dice. You will roll a die that matches the color of the center of each of the starting room tiles and place it on the center of that tile. So 2 red and 2 yellow dice will be rolled. If a 6 is rolled, you will re-roll until you get something other than a 6. Since we rolled a 6, we will re-roll that die. Step 3, place a deckhand in the room with a trapdoor icon. Step 4, you are going to create a pool next to the play area for the fire dice, deckhands, dinghy card, and battle die. Step 5, shuffle and place the revenge cards. Step 6, shuffle, place, and offset the regular room tiles. You will shuffle the regular room tiles, place them face down, and then you will offset or turn a number of those tiles equal to double the number of players. Since we're playing a 3-player game, we will offset the top 6 regular room tiles. Step 7, place the double-sided tokens into the cloth bag. Since we are playing a regular game, we will not be including the captain token. Step 8, determine the difficulty and winning conditions for your game. There's a difficulty table that corresponds to the winning conditions listed in the rulebook. So since this is a 3-player game, and since this is our first game, we will have to loot 4 treasures. Step 9, you will get your player components and place the remaining item cards face up. So each player will get a player board, setting their fatigue dial to 0, a random character card, a random item card, the pirate figure and token that matches the color of our character, placing the battle token at 0 on the battle track, a player aid, and then finally a stack of 5 action tokens. Or if you're playing with Lydia, you will get 6 action tokens. And then finally, step 10. You are going to place your pirate figure on the small boat by the entrance of the ship, and the first player is the player's character that comes first alphabetically. So in this case, Flynn is our starting player. Now let's take a look at the gameplay. A game consists of a series of turns until the players either win or lose. To win the game, you must meet all loot requirements that you chose during setup, and every player has to make it off the ship. There are multiple ways in which players can lose the game. You can lose the game by the explosion marker going to the end of the track, when you need to add deckhands and there are none, when you are unable to add a regular room tile, too many treasures have been destroyed, a pirate dies and there are no pirates left to replace him, or if a pirate dies after all of the treasures have been looted. A turn consists of 3 steps: search the ship, take pirate actions, and then revenge. Now let's look at each in detail. Step 1, searching the ship. You're going to turn over the top room tile and add it to the ship, making sure that the doors of the new tile match. Then place the matching die on that tile in the center. If there are 0 pips on that die, then you will not place the die at this time. Then you will draw a token from the bag and place it on the tile. If you drew a treasure or guard, you would place the guard side up. A skeleton crew and either the cutlass or grog, you would place the skeleton crew side up. If you draw a trap door, you will always add a deckhand to that tile as well. If you run out of deckhands and need to place one, you automatically lose the game. On everyone's first turn, they will place 2 room tiles, dice, and tokens. This is why a number of them were offset during setup. So in this case, 6 were offset during setup. So for the first turn, for all 3 of our players, they will place 2 regular room tiles. You cannot place the room tiles lower than the starting tiles. The starting tiles are representing the ship's edge. So in this case, when placing regular room tiles, they will have to go on the same line as their starting tiles or to the right. When placing the last room tile, if it has an open door not connected with another tile, then you have found the second exit and you will place the dinghy card next to the door. So in this case, red is the starting player and have to place 2 regular room tiles. So in this case, we drew a treasure, guard, and a trap door. So we place the treasure guard side up and then place a deckhand with the trap door. And that brings us to step 2, take pirate actions. You may spend your action tokens to perform any of the following: walk, run, fight fires, eliminate a deckhand, pick up a token, rest, increase battle strength, or swap an item card. It's good to keep in mind that you will spend an action token each time you take an action, flipping the token over. And any that you do not use will go to the next player. They can use them on their turn and then give them back to you, or if they do not use them on their turn, they still have to give them back to you after their turn. You will always have at least 5 action tokens to start the turn. Now let's look at each of the 8 actions. Walk. You may go through a door to an adjacent tile spending 1 of your action tokens. If the fire die value on the new room is higher than the current room, you would suffer fatigue. Your fatigue track will go up the difference between those 2 numbers. The second action is run. You may move 2 rooms spending 1 action token. You will check fatigue for each room and then add 2 to that total to the fatigue track. The third action is fight fires. You will spend an action token to lower the fire die value by 1 in the room that you are located. If the fire die is at 1 and you lowered the die, then you would remove it from the ship. The fourth action is eliminate a deckhand. You may spend 1 action token to remove 1 deckhand from where your pirate is located, or from an adjacent room tile if you have an open door connection. When you remove the deckhand, you will return them to the supply. The fifth action is pick up a token. You will spend 1 action token to pick up a treasure, cutlass, or grog token from the room your pirate is located. You can only carry 1 treasure token at a time. You may put down a token for free at any time. The sixth action is rest. You may spend 1 action token to lower your fatigue level by 2. The seventh type of action is to increase your battle strength. You may spend 1 action token to go up on your battle track by 1. And the 8th type of action is to swap an item card. You may spend an action token to either take a face-up item card next to the board or from another player. When it comes to your fatigue track, if it reaches a number that has a die next to it, your pirate can no longer enter rooms with that number. You can lower your fatigue by resting, drinking grog, or taking a breather by going off the ship. If you leave the ship, then your fatigue is reduced by half. If your fatigue ever reaches the skull and crossbones, the pirate is worked to death and the player removes the pirate, discards the character card, draws a new one, discards the item out of the game, draws a new item at random, discards any cutlass or grog tokens, resets their battle track to 0. If they had any treasures, then they drop them in the room that they died, place the new figure at the entrance, and immediately end their turn. If there are no pirates left, then the players lose. If your pirate moves into a room with a skeleton, or the skeleton moves into a room with the pirate, then you must battle the skeleton crew before doing anything else. You must drop any treasure that you are carrying, and then roll the battle die. You would then take the number on that die, add any increases from your item cards, and optionally from your battle track modifier, and if your number is greater than or equal to, you would then flip that crew token. If it is less than the skeleton crew number, you lose the battle and your fatigue goes up by the difference. Then you would roll the battle die a second time, and then you would use the reference chart on your player aid to see who moves or if you battle again. If you encounter a guard, you must fight it until it dies or you retreat. Your fight will be just like the skeleton crew. You will ignore the fire level of the room if you fight again. If you encounter both a skeleton crew and guard in the same room, you would fight the skeleton crew first. If you have multiple skeleton crew in one room, you would get to choose which you fight first. It's good to keep in mind that during these battles, using the battle track modifier is optional. But if you use the battle track modifier, you have to reset it to 0 or your lowest battle track number. Cutlass tokens allow you to up your minimum battle track value. They are placed on your lowest battle track space. So your first cutlass token can be used to cover up the 0. When taking your pirate actions, if you choose to loot or pick up a treasure, you would place it on your player board, and then you can only walk, rest, or swap item cards until you get the treasure off the ship safely. When you carry it off the ship, you would place it on the dinghy card, lower your fatigue level by half, and end your turn immediately. Which means that if you have any leftover action tokens, you would hand them to the next player for them to use. Also, when looting, you gain fatigue for every room, not the difference. So let's say it's Red's turn. Now that they've used all of their actions, it's time to go on to step 3, Revenge. After taking all of your pirate actions, you would turn over the top Revenge card. The card shows fire effects, deckhand effects, and or crew movement. Fire effects. All die matching the color and number will go up by 1. If the die on the card were blank, all of the blanks or removed die matching that color would then gain a die at a value of 1. When doing this, if the number on the die matches the keg number on the regular room tile, an explosion happens. You would place the die on the keg. You would raise the fire level in the adjacent room where the keg is located by 1. If there is no room adjacent to that door, then it would shoot out another door, moving clockwise. And then you would move the explosion track up 1. If the explosion track ever reaches the last spot, then the ship explodes, everyone dies, and the players lose. If a die ever reaches 6, the room tile explodes, and every adjacent room through a door increases their fire level by 1. Tokens and deckhands are removed permanently from that tile. You would flip the tile face down, and any pirate in that room dies. The deckhand effects. There are 2 possible deckhand effects that appear on the card. If it has a trapdoor icon, then you would add 1 deckhand to every room that has a trapdoor icon. If it has a trapdoor icon with arrows, then the deckhands will only spread out through doors into adjacent rooms, and only into rooms that have fewer deckhands in them than the room with the trapdoor. It's good to keep in mind that deckhands will never spread out into a room with a trapdoor icon. When multiple deckhands are located in a room, certain effects occur. If there's just 1 deckhand, then there is no effect. If there are 2 deckhands, then the pirates cannot pick up any tokens in that room. If there are 3 or more deckhands, then no pirate can enter that room. And then finally, the skeleton crew movement. If the card shows skeleton crew move, all the skeleton crew tokens would move into an adjacent room. The skeleton crew always move toward the closest pirate. So in this case, we only have a yellow 5, and there are no yellow 5s on the ship, so it has no effect. Then turns would continue to the next player and going around until one of the in-game conditions are met. If your explosion track reaches the last location, you ran out of deckhands and need to add one, a room tile cannot be added legally to the ship, too many treasure tokens have been destroyed, no more pirates are left and a pirate dies, or if a pirate dies after all of the treasures have been looted, you and your crew lose the game. If you and your crew loot the number of treasures that you chose when choosing difficulty and setup and make it off of the ship, then you and your crew of pirates are the best crew and win Dead Men Tell No Tales.